did the funeral, then drove back to South Dakota for us to finish pheasant hunting and bring us back home. So there we were out in South Dakota with some friends at the other church that we were at. We've been at. So I'm very happy to come back. I'm very glad I could bring my mother. And she has been, I think, enjoying a lot, hearing a lot of the stories. And so please go up and tell her some stories about the life back in the early 60s. There's Lorraine Olson. Lorraine is now living in the White Pines assisted living place, just less than a mile away from here, which also is a reason for this church. If you remember, the church that has a space that was built a nursing home, because the care for people across the ages is a real important thing. So thank you for letting me come.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm attempting to do this chronologically, so I think we want Dwayne Whisker next.
I would echo his words of thanks to having us here. Have my family with me today, at least most of them. Connie is here, and our oldest Drew, my sister Georgine, and Mom, who is now in Eau Claire, by the way, and doing very well over there. And Drew, our oldest, is engaged, and his fiancée Sarah is here. And our soon-to-be first grandchild, Madison, is here with us also today. So, why don't I introduce our family? I simply want to say, probably more than anything, a big word of thanks to you and to the people here at Christ Lutheran. As I think about remembering the past, I think of stories with me hiding under the table at Ladies' Aid with my grandma Doll at Ladies' Aid meeting. That was in the Prairie Hall up at the end up by Tinker. I think of one experience, especially when Ed and Arlene Lund and the Luther League, we were out, I think we were trick-or-treating. And Ed Lund, as you recall, drove a fuel oil truck. And a neat guy. This particular occasion when the Luther League was out, Ed Lund was dressed up as a lady. That was early cross-dressing. And someone apparently reported us to the gendarmes because the police pulled us over. And you can about imagine Ed's story. These police people, that this was a bunch of church kids. Yeah, right. I also remember very vividly when I was ordained here, I was so taken with the event and the emotion of the day that I couldn't remember the words to the Apostles' Creed. I couldn't remember them, and thank goodness the bishop's assistant who was here that day to do the ordination was kind of prompting me as I knelt there in front of the altar, and I was appreciative. I do really want to say a word as you think about looking toward the future, part of your theme for today. Just keep in mind that you'll probably never know how you touch an individual's life. It's really because of people here that the seed of God's Word was planted with me. Thanks to my family who brought me here, and to you who were here, who ministered to me. And the seed was planted, and much to my surprise, and not to too many others, but much to my surprise, I ended up as an ordained pastor after practicing pharmacy for 3 years. I say, as you look to the future, don't forget about planting that seed with children and with youth and adults, because that is not only the church of today, but also the church of the future. And you may be planting seeds right now with some of your children and some of your young adults who here and teenagers to think about ministering in the church. A very challenging, and I know all the pastors will nod their head, yes, at the big time. A very challenging call today in our very complex world, but a call that God graces us with and equips us to do. So think about that as you think about the future. You don't have to do it in big ways, just be who you are as God's people. And God will do the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. What was your ordination date?
June 22nd, 1975.
June 22nd, 1975. I believe chronologically now we're probably for Pastor Les Peterson. This won't take long. I don't like Mike.
I'm just going to shout.
Ruth and I are beginning to forget everything. So, when I got to church this morning, they told, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Without the phone, that thing, because that barks. I got to church this morning and Mark asked me, you're going to give a speech, aren't you? And I said, I don't know anything about it. And then a little bit later they said, well, you got a letter. I said, I can't remember. And then now Jane says, I sent you a letter. I can't remember. But we're getting that way. If I go down to the basement to pick something up in the fridge, I forget what I went for.
I'm already there.
So, that's the way the ball bounces. I want to say this, that I was very proud to become an associate pastor with Pastor Hilmer Mostu. In 1981, July 1st, in August I was installed, and I became associate pastor with Pastor Hilmer Mostu. I'll never forget it. One of the things that I'll say that he told me to do was he said, push world hunger. Push world hunger. We haven't been doing it so much. And if you remember, we got over $2,000 that first year for world hunger. And Pastor Mostu was the one that told me to do that. So I worked with him as his associate. I worked with him from July 81 until he resigned. But all of you know that he resigned. I didn't know he was going to resign. I was his associate. I wasn't your associate. And he said, I have my letter all written, and I'm going to give it to the council tonight, and I'm resigning. I think it was September 82. Either 82 or, either September or October. And he was gone. And then the council called me into the council meeting, and it happened to be over at Hagen's house. And they said, Les, would you be the pastor while he is gone? I don't know if they called it an interim pastor. I can't remember. But I will say that I accepted it from October till when Pastor Bo was willing to come in June 83. So I was the sole pastor for that time. And by the way, I've never had a better salary since. I got Pastor Hilmer's salary, my salary, and the American Lutheran Home all at one time. I've never had anything like that. And I never will. I enjoyable time that I've had at this church is working with the senior citizens in Silver Threads. Sleigh rides, picnics, and get-togethers, and many of you have those pictures, and we have an album that's tremendous. Liza, thank you. We had a very, very good group, and we enjoyed it. And I stayed with Christ Lutheran with Pastor Bo. So, by the way, that was your 100th birthday, and I thank God for Pastor Bo, because in June 1st he took over and I backed out. Thank
you. Thank you, Les. Thank Les and Ruth for all the emphasis they did in our congregation to remind us of the mission and ministry outside of our own congregation. And also, I'm quite sure you earned every bit of the salary you ever told. We're not in the habit of overpaying on here. Let's see. How about Grace Swenson? Grace would like to say a few words, I'm sure.
See if I can talk in that. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be back. I wish I could give every one of you a hug right now. I know my husband probably wants to too. But you had such a wonderful day planned, so congratulations on everything that you've done. The call to Christ Lutheran was my first call. I went into the ministry later in life. And so I was grateful for Andy Bo and also for this congregation for taking me and giving me that call. I was half-time, and I visited in the homes and shared your joys and sorrows. I taught a lot of classes in confirmation, First Communion, and also went to the care centers and presided at worship. Thank you. And thank you, Mel, for being so faithful to God over all of these years, for following Jesus. We have lots of memories. Oh, I did this right. Lots of memories at Christ Lutheran. I mentioned Ed Lund, but you all welcomed us so well. And my husband especially was welcomed by Ed, who noticed that he didn't wear a lot of heavy overcoats in the winter. He's kind of warm-blooded that way, but Ed took a collection up to send him to Goodwill so he could get an overcoat. And then there was Cliff Hermanson, if you remember Cliff. They always took good care of us too. Well, Dick had to make coffee one Sunday morning, and Cliff tasted it. Well, Dick is quite a strong coffee maker, so Cliff was in the kitchen. He heated 2 tea kettles full of water to add to Dick's coffee. So you see, we were very well welcomed. And I have to ask, one of my first times I was here, I was supposed to work with a group on making the church, the directory. So I stayed overnight in Menomonie, so I'd be here for that early morning meeting. And then I slept in this room with this alarm clock that was still set on daylight saving time. And thank you to Bill Neverdell and Jerry Smith for forgiving me for not showing up at that meeting. I made the rest of them. And then there's Kari Boostrom. She organized all the crosses that we got borrowed from the seminary that one year. And I was so proud of that. But now she's up at the archives in the seminary working up there. And she's even taking classes at seminary. So that was one thing I remember. And Les and Ruth, of course, we remember so many mission moments from them. Les, the thing I remember most about you, one of the things is you always had that big brown jar and we collected money for heifers for Tanzania. And when we left, we had 12 of them plus one pig. Do you still do that?
Ask Tyson. Tyson, they're working with Tyson.
Good.
Listen, the first year we had $1,200 for heifers in Tanzania.
Yeah.
First time of year.
It's amazing. This is a very mission organized or oriented congregation, and that's wonderful. And I have to remember Vi Hawkinson, who had me stay with her when my Aunt Catherine wasn't available anymore, and for her gifts of spirituality and her calligraphy. I see she even still does some calligraphy recently. And Pastor Bo and Joan for teaching me so much. Remember that time when we had that surprise party for Bo when he was 50? At during announcement times, we had this 50 is nifty t-shirt for him. And you all sent him cards, and we had a huge cake. We had a party. And years afterwards, he talked about that. He said, do you have one of those sheets that organize that party? And I said, oh, haven't you ever seen it? No, he said, you surprised me. So we surprised him, in case you didn't know. That was nice. Finally, I want to tell you about a couple of young people, because I worked a lot with young people. Amber Nenis and Julie Stevens are representative of those young people. They helped with puppets and children's sermons. And the second lesson for September 3rd, 1995, I even had it sort of in my file, was therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Paul imagines a believer as one in a sharp race. Now, Amber and Julie were in track, and so as we were talking over, they decided they'd come in their track outfits, all decked out, but they had on backpacks and carrying their books and radios and notebooks. They would have iPods too, I'm sure, but they weren't invented yet. They were weighted down. Paul wrote that the Christian must remove the sin which clings so closely, and that sin we identified as cheating, jealousy, hatred, lying, pride, selfishness. And by God's grace, symbolically, the girls removed all those extra things, their backpacks, symbols of that sin. They were set to run the race with God. And they danced with their feet and ran out of the sanctuary. And you know, that's the one time that I've ever heard a congregation clap for a children's sermon. And you did. And I think it was not only because they did such a good job, but it's because you care so much about youth in this place. I sensed that then, and I sensed it again today, seeing those kids up in the choir. And bless you for that. So may God help each of us to run that race, following Jesus, the perfecter of our faith. May God bless you all. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you personally. I'd like to thank you personally, too, for helping me to get a better understanding of the meaning of the word grace during the time that you were here, sir.
Gary, when we were building this unit here, Pastor Gray said to me one day, you know, there's only one kitchen door. We have to have two in there. And that's how the door got in at this end by the dishwasher.
I'm certainly pleased with the work that was done on the new addition we did here. I remember that vividly because I was involved with council at the time, and we brought building plans to the congregation and looked them over and did not approve them, and we brought them 6 months later as they've been modified and did not approve them, and then 6 months later came back again and they were approved. And I looked back on it and I thought, you know, each time we were sent back to the drawing board, things got better. And I think we're all happy that it worked out the way that it worked out, because we're pretty pleased with the facility we have. We had an interim period when Pastor Bowl left and Grace was serving here. And Marshall Hall came and helped us at that time. Marshall Hall.
Thank you. I'd like for you to meet my wife, Joy. Some of you may remember her, some of you probably don't. I remember back when we were engaged, which has been some time ago now, but I was working with an older man, probably about my age, and he says, good. He says, I've never known a man about anything if he was married. And then sometimes they still don't amount to anything. I'm glad to hear that others of you have difficulty remembering things. That's where I am too. Difficulty remembering things. Pardon me, I got to stand in the right place here. Joy has been my mentor in a way, and also has critiqued my ministry over the years, and I deeply appreciated this. A few years ago, I was 73 when I quit info ministry, and then I did some supply preaching after that. And I remember one time on the way home from supply preaching, she says, I think maybe it's time for you to quit. And I think she thought I was probably going to get a pulpit and wondered why I was there. Now as we sit in the pew, every time it comes time for communion, she gives me an elbow in the rib. And I'll show you the bruises right here. Trying to get out of time to go to communion. Let me share one humorous little thing that happened while we were here. Just one. We had, I think it was stewardship, but we were trying to teach the young people to share, and we had some cookies, some wrapped cookies, individually wrapped cookies, I think it was. And I invited the young people to come forward, and we gave them each two on the condition that they share one with someone in the congregation. And as I was doing that, I looked out of the corner of my eye, and here were two young boys over there exchanging the cookies. That's not the way to do it. I think my first impression of you folks is probably the best and the most long-lasting. And that is the leadership that you have in this congregation. When we come in as interim pastors, we have a list of tasks that we're supposed to do in the congregation while we're there. I was with you for a year, of course. And I remember one of the first things that struck me was that the leadership of this congregation was already well into that. And in some cases, even beyond the things I was supposed to accomplish with you. And that's true leadership. And that's something that you have. And I'm so happy today when I learned that you have continued that tradition of developing leadership, that you have people here who will preach, that you have a little time off once in a while. I remember I used to appreciate when we had the guest pastor in my parishes, because that week I didn't have to prepare. I could do so many things that needed to be done. It used to take me quite a while to get my sermon ready. And I could go on to these things. And I'm sure that the same thing is true for Jeff. Giving him a little break once in a while is really great. And that's leadership. And I'd love to have had parishes with that kind of leadership as I in my ministry. I had some, but probably none as great as you have here. And that's meant as a compliment to you. The second thing I wanted to say was that You know, you don't just learn from your pastors learn from you. And I think that there's not been a parish that I've served that haven't taught me things that have done in my ministry. Ministry isn't so much learned from books as it's learned from working with people. And I think I can look back and say that every parish that I served taught me things that helped me as I went to the next parish and as I continued ministry. And you folks taught me a lot. I want you to know that, and I appreciate it deeply. May God bless you now as you look forward to 150. By the way, I was going to say, this is so much fun, we ought to have one of this next year again.
We're always looking for an excuse to have a good meal.
I have a little anecdote about Pastor Hall. Shortly after he came, several of us were in the office, and of course, when we were in the office doing something, we were also telling jokes and laughing, and we were getting a little loud. And all of a sudden, the door to his office opened up, and he came in very seriously, and he said, you know, frivolity in the church is frowned upon. And we all just sort of dropped mouths and didn't know what to say, and then he got a big grin on his face. He said, if you're going to tell jokes, I want to be in on them.
That's interim work. Andrea and I moved to Menomonie in 1977, and just a few months later, what came to be some very good friends of ours moved to town, and Stu and Kathy Fullerton bought a house down the street, and we kind of raised our kids together quite a bit there, and after being a very active member here for many years, Kathy went into seminary and is now serving as a pastor down in Wells, Minnesota, and she's next.
Thanks, Gary. As pastor, where do I stand to get this right? You know, we had 4 kids, so if you can't hear me, just raise your hand. But as Pastor Hall said, the congregation is the one who teaches us. And for me, that was expected that you would teach me because I came here as your intern for 15 months. And so I thank you for the fact that you were good teachers for me, and that you opened your arms and welcomed me in and allowed me to learn what it meant to be a pastor. And so you were open and accepting me as your pastor, and at the same time, when I was also doing my my chaplain residency over at Luther Hospital at the same time, you would call on me when I was there. And so it was good that I could see you in both places, and we've enjoyed our years together with you. One thing that I just have one thing that I would like to share that I remember about my internship time here. And it was in the summer of 2002. And for my internship project, I had chosen evangelism. And so I called together through the bulletin, hoping that people would come, and I did some talking to people because we were going to have a neighborhood campaign and go around and give people flyers in the neighborhood and let them know that they were all welcome to come and join with us. Now, there was one of our group that was so excited about evangelism that once he got started, he couldn't stop. And I think you could probably all guess that was Pastor Les. But we had a good time together. So I thank you for the time that we've had with you. Stu and I are pleased to be able to be invited here today and to share your special day with you. And as Gary said, we are down in Wells, Minnesota now, so if you ever are traveling through on I-90, we're not far from I-90, so please stop in. I served there in shared ministry with another pastor in a church of about 1,100 in a community of about 2,500. So we would look forward to seeing you there. So I thank you and wish you well. I look forward to seeing what happens with the ministry in the next 25 years.
Thank you, Kathy. Unfortunately, we'll have a mic that isn't quite as tricky. But that would take away from the personality of our congregation. I'm supposed to make an announcement that the centerpieces, the jars and candles on the tables are available. It says they're available for sale for 75 cents, or 2 for $1. Price will probably keep dropping until we get rid of them. But and I was told they do have covers if you want to be able to cover the package and take them home. So, we'd like to do a little bit of recognition now. I believe I had a couple letters from people who were unable to attend. Pastor Sally Ankerfeld says she is job sharing on a full-time call in South Minneapolis, and we have 3 children at home, and they're busy. And that's the gist of that one. That's very brief. I have a letter from Central Lutheran down in Menomonie from Pastor Ralph Mark. Congratulations and God's blessings as you celebrate this milestone in ministry of 125 years. Amy and I celebrate with you as we remember the ministry we shared in our years with you in Menomonie. We regret not being able to share the day with you in person. We are thankful for those who have come to visit us here in Menomonie. It is good to meet so many of you and our visits back to Menomonie and around the area. I also share with you the greetings of your sisters and brothers in Christ here at Central Lutheran in Menomonie. The years move swiftly as we are into our 3rd year here. It is going very well. Amy and I are blessed to be part of this congregation and community and to share in the ministry of which we are all a part as the people of God. May the Lord continue to lead us all in the ministry that we all share. May the Holy Spirit continue to lead us and inspire us to be in mission to the world around us, be it next door or the world abroad. It is good to renew acquaintances and to remember the ministry we shared together. As you look back, may you also strive to look forward, to build upon the past, and to hear again the call of the Lord to be disciples as we all enter into a future that is held by God and is given to us as a holy trust. God's richest blessings to you all, and may you joyously celebrate this 125th anniversary. Ralph and Amy. We wanted to, since this is a historic occasion, maybe check a couple things out. We were looking for who is our oldest member in attendance, oldest person in attendance here. George? And I don't know if that's George or not. George is only 94 for a couple more days. Do we have anybody that's over 94? Probably not. How about our youngest member here today?
Oh.
I don't know how many of the babies stayed.
Megan.
Megan.
Oh, what is little?
Megan Hansen, probably. How old is Megan?
Oh, she's not here. She needs to.
2 months? She's better behaved than a lot of us. Okay, how about our longest term member, our long-time member?
1936.
Okay, we've got one from 1936. Was that a baptism or? 36? Artie?
And what about George?
1919 she was baptized.
1919, Liza was baptized here?
Yeah,
See, we topped that. Did anybody top that?
43.
Well, that's probably as good as we're going to do there. Oh, what else do we have? How many people here are lifetime members? Baptized. Yeah, raise your hand. Next one. Well, yes, that was one I was going to ask, I forgot. Who's traveled the furthest distance to come today? Anybody farther than Norway? Linda, were you baptized in this congregation? Our Saviors? Okay. Now I need to ask, what am I forgetting?
Pastor Scott.
We have,
The crosses, please feel free to stand across the home field. Thank you, the crosses that are on there.
process our donation. We have a couple of booklets out on the table in the hallway that have been put together by some people who put a lot of work into that in terms of collecting some of our history and writing things down. And then people, many of you were willing to share your memories of the congregation, and that's been recorded. So feel free to take those as you go. Pastor Scott, would you like the microphone yet?
Gary, after the program, the video is going to be run again for those of you who didn't see it after the service.
Okay, we're going to close our time, at least this time together. I'm sure there'll be opportunities afterwards here, but sort of the formal end of the proceedings with the Lord's Prayer. And I'm going to ask that you stand where you're seated and hold hands. I don't know if we can reach across aisles to tables, but at least